Hello, fellow accountants, bookkeepers, and practice owners, and anyone who is listening or watching. We are in episode 4. Can you believe it? Neither can I. But here we are, and we are talking about all things accounting and things that will help run a better practice. And today I have another guest whose job it is to help accountants, improve their efficiencies, improve their processes. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you or say hello to Isaac Perdomo for you. Hi, Isaac.
Hi, Sushil. How's everything going?
Everything's very, very all right. Isaac is an automation expert, but for most of us, the accountants are being tech friendly. We do not know what an automation expert does. So we'll be talking about where we can improve our efficiencies, and maybe first let Isaac introduce himself in his own words. So Isaac, take it away.
Sure. So my name is Isaac Perdomo. As Sushil said, I am the co-founder of Xero.co. We are an automation firm that specifically focuses on helping tax, bookkeeping, and accounting practices automate some of their workflows. So as Sushil has mentioned, typically we come in and we look at the workflow and processes of our clients and try to find better ways to do things and try to eliminate some of the wrong work that maybe the people currently are doing, and that automation and software and technology is better off taking care of.
All right. So the first question I think for a firm owner to seek your help would be, do I need to automate this task? But for most of the accounting firm owners, they do not understand whether automation exists for their thing or not, where automation is required. And so how do you educate, or how does someone get to know or realize that I think it would be better if I could automate this, or there is better process for this?
Yeah, so most of our clients come to us with an idea of maybe a process that has been working as well, right? It might be that client communication is falling through the cracks. It might be that the tasks that the firm has to do are not getting done, or deadlines are being met. So usually I like to start, okay, what's the problem we're solving to begin with? Because that gives us some context. But I could give you just a little bit of a taste of what that usually looks like and what are some common use cases. We like to look a lot whenever possible, because we get a lot of those type of clients, like the tax prep workflow, as an example. What we've noticed is that if you look at something we like to do is map out the process to see it visually, to understand what's required for the process to occur. And what we start to realize is that, okay, there's a lot of steps in this process that are actually not technical work. It's not rare that maybe 50-60% of the tasks that need to happen are either you're doing some sort of data entry into a software of some kind, you're requesting documents from clients, you are potentially reviewing those documents, obtaining or extracting data out of those documents in some way, shape, or form, keying it in somewhere. So in short, I'd like to tell practice owners to dream and simply lay out their process as they currently do it, even, and not necessarily think about whether it can be automated or not yet. Just lay it out, and that will help you see where maybe some of the gaps are, and you can start exploring options to potentially automate it.
Homeowner has a certain idea that they might want to automate it, or there might be an efficiency in that we might be able to achieve there. So at least he has a certain idea that there is a better solution for this problem, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Accountants as a group, we are not too tech friendly.
Yeah.
Automation as an idea seems very good. So let computer do all the things. Where should one start, and what processes in a particular accounting firm may be set up for automation?
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about the tax prep process a little bit already. One of the ones we see a lot as well, it's onboarding. So client onboarding clients, might be also like lead management. We actually like to look at the entire client experience. From the moment they inquire about your business, how can we make sure that they potentially get emails automatically, or as they move on and they schedule a call and they go ahead and you send in proposals, how can we make sure all of those pieces start talking to all your different software applications, all the way after like offboarding and the moment they review your firm, refer you to someone else, etc. So between like either taxes, bookkeeping, the client experience as a whole, there's often a ton of opportunities. It can be overwhelming to kind of know where to start. So that's why I usually kind of go back to what problem are we solving? What do you think is not as sufficiently, so that we can start tackling that specific.
Major for an accounting firm owner thinks that if he sets up or if he sets up a practice management software that would do majority of their work for them, their workflows or all the onboarding processes as well. Is that enough? Practice management software, is it enough?
It can take on multiple pieces of the puzzle. For example, there are incredible practice management software applications that will do, for example, task management very well. Will have a very good client portal. They might have good document management and file management for you to store your documents. But what we often find is very rare that one application is going to do everything very well. So more often than not, what we're doing is like, okay, if you're using Karbon, accounting, tax, and wherever it might be, let's look at what are those pieces that you really like, and let's keep using those tools for that. But then let's find alternatives to those other pieces of that software that you maybe don't necessarily like. I've worked with multiple firms that maybe we move them from using their organizer that's built into their practice management software to like a form builder or another client requests app, or maybe they're using another practice management software and using their file management, but for some reason or another, it's just not enough. I'm not cutting it. So we might move them to another file management software of sorts. So to answer your question, it can be enough for multiple things. We find it's rarely enough for everything, as many of those software companies claims, unfortunately.
When we're talking about automation, let's say a firm brought in practice management, they also want to increase efficiencies in other like in onboarding, let's say. But when we are talking about doing automation, bringing it in place or bringing in technology, how can we decide whether or not it would be beneficial? When we talk about cost or when we talk about hours, work hours, man hours. So how does someone do that?
Yeah, I love that question because personally, I love the work we do. So whatever work I can get to do, I kind of want to. But I've realized over time that not all automations are worth it, to your point. So sometimes it's important to try to look through, okay, of what's actually worth doing. Over time, I've started to come up with a easy to understand framework and a couple of pillars and concepts to make that assessment. And what I've come up with is this like 4-pillar concept. I like to call it flux. This is a way for me to easily understand it, which is FLUX. And those stands for frequent, long, urgent, and the X stands for error prone. So I'll walk you through what those mean right now. The first is frequency. If there's something you don't do regularly, then automation is not going to help you a lot if it's something you do every 3 years. The more frequently you do something, then the more likely it's going to give you a return if you automate it. So look at things you do on a monthly basis. There's a lot of bookkeeping tasks, for example, that are done on a monthly or on a weekly basis. Like, take a look at the things you do potentially even on a daily basis, which there are some of those potential tasks as well. The piece number 2 is length. Of course, if you do it on a daily basis, but it only takes you 2 minutes, maybe it's not as big of a deal. So also take into account how long it takes you to do it. The third piece is urgency, and that's important as well, because the more quickly it needs done, the more benefit it is from someone else to have that work done for one reason or another. It might be, we have deadlines in many of our tax processes. If you have monthly bookkeeping, those reports usually need to be done between a certain time frame to be helpful. So also take into account how urgent the task might be. If it doesn't matter if it gets done in a week or if it would benefit from getting done straight away so the next person can continue on. And the last piece, the 4, which is the X, which is kind of like error for errors, it's looking at how likely that process is to have a human error or a mistake of some sort. So what comes to mind off the bat is like just data extraction from documents, invoices, bills, and so on, where you're having like to look at a PDF and type in manually those specific numbers and amounts. That's usually okay. You can see that that's beneficial. So again, the more frequent, the longer it takes, the more urgent and the more error-prone a particular task or process is, then the more likely it's going to be beneficial looking into automating, the quicker the return's going to be on it.
I love that when you were talking about automation, you're also talking about maybe there is no need for that also, right? Because there are people who are at both side of the spectrum who, they are satisfied with their legacy processes. They do not want to, upgrade to new technology, but also there are people who, want to do everything with technology, automate everything, even if it is not required, without looking at cost. You have a very sensible approach where you see whether it is repetitive, whether it is long, whether it is error prone. So if that's the case, maybe automation would be a, good option. But if it is not, then maybe all the processes that you have been doing as you have been doing regularly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also like a priority thing. Sometimes it makes sense to start with the most frequent, longer, more urgent processes first, and then kind of go through that list to maybe the ones that are maybe not as regular, but you might also benefit from. But yeah, to your point, it's important to look at potential and return the investment of the automation process you're considering.
Right. And automation also, when this year or a couple of years before this, the technology has taken such a leap that now in the accounting industry, as I see it, there is a very rapid sort of, fear that technology will take us over, and some also looking at technology as a driver of their business. So we have come a very long way from, being a manual accountant to now cloud accountants. For us as well, we are doing accounting for international clients, but from here in Nepal, right? So in these years have grown so rapidly that automation has become a priority for everyone. But also when we are talking about client onboarding, does this technology part take away from the human part when we are dealing with clients? Maybe if we are automating everything when we are onboarding, client gets the email automatically, gets the automated phone calls, gets videos to what to do next, right? So there's that thing also where automation may not always be good. So how do you propose that we tackle that?
Yeah, I love that question because it's one of the things we always love to consider, which is like the client experience and how are we at least keeping it the same or potentially improving it. So I'll tell you a big story. It's not related to accounting, but I hope that it kind of like hits home. Years ago, I don't know if you fly a lot, to other countries, but it was common that you do the check-in in the airport. So you have to kind of like go do like the long line. You have to go much earlier to the airport so that you were able to go through, check in your baggage, whatever it might be, and move on. And of course, more recently, you started to see a lot of more like you can check in from your mobile app, you can check in from your phone, for your computer, or if you go to the airport, you have the ability to check in with the computers that are there without having to necessarily see. So in that particular context, if you think about that, we've essentially automated part of that check-in by giving the client or the passenger in this case the ability to give us what we need at any given time. But I would argue that even though there's less human touch points in that particular instance, it's still a better experience for them. And what I like to say a lot is like, how can we automate the menial tasks and the menial touch points, so that the actual touch points, the meetings with the clients, the phone calls with the clients are much more meaningful, right? Because a client's not necessarily, you're not necessarily building a relationship with a client by sending them an email and asking them to send you a document. That's not particularly, cool. And in building the relationship. But of course, if you are able to automate some of those pieces, and then you have more time to actually call them proactively, to actually meet with them, so give them more face-to-face time, then I think we'll win.
Yeah. You said, like, talk about the 80-20 rule, right? So we are focusing on the 20% of the stuff, the relationship, 20% of the stuff that gets 80% of the results, and the rest 80% of the things that repetitive menial works, it is being automated. So we focus more on the things that gives us more returns. Proactively doing client calls and scheduling a meeting, asking for questions that they might have, right? So I think automation in this case, if we also look at from the point of view of the 80-20 rule, that the 80% of the tasks that are repetitive, that are, like we said, long and error prone, that we let the computers do that. If my assessment is right there.
Yeah.
Right. When you are automating this type of processes, what processes do you use and what technologies do you recommend your clients?
Yeah. I'm happy to dive into that. I have a little bit of a framework around that I'll be happy to share. Again, I have another acronym. I love acronyms to remember things because I'm a forgetful person. So the acronym is brains, actually, with an S at the end. So that stands for bots, recognition, apps, integrations, neural nets, and then scripts. I'll walk you through just some of them for you to get a perspective. Typically, the three we use the most are first, applications. This is super straightforward. And actually, it's more often than not the most cost-effective and easiest to implement. So if you're looking at a process, sometimes that our firms are still doing a lot of work, for example, in spreadsheets or in Google Docs, and you might actually just do a little bit of research, and you might find out that some of those processes that you're currently doing manually, there's an app in the market that already exists that for a cost-effective price will help you tackle that. So that's like level one. Level two is usually the integrations piece. And this is more often than not, how can we make sure that all the apps we're using are talking to one another, right? Because what often happens is a firm will start using multiple applications, but then comes like app fatigue with it. And now team members have to switch between app to app. Maybe they have a hard time finding the actual truthful client information because they don't know in which app it is. And so it becomes a little bit hard to tackle. So the second kind of layer we started looking at is how can we integrate all of those applications that they're using so that they're seamlessly talking to one another, automating workflows as needed. A popular tool that's very user-friendly that many people use is called Zapier. There are others like Make or Pipedream, which are a little bit more built for developers that give you a little bit more options and customization. But I'll argue that's probably like 50-60% of our time spent in that kind of like layer. The other technologies, I'll just touch on them real quick. It's not something we do a ton of, but there's also like bots, which is like, okay, when the integration platforms are not enough, you can still create a bot that mimics the human actions. So that clicks here, that logs in here, that copy pastes this, that downloads this file, that uploads somewhere else. So you can think about the integration piece as connecting the applications. And you can think of the bots more so as automating the interface or what the human would do manually. And aside from that, there's also, I mentioned, which is effectively the ability for a machine to read what's on a document, what's on an invoice in a bill or something like that. And also, of course, artificial intelligence, which has been a much more recent development that we have to talk about, because it also allows now effectively the ability to reason and have automation be much more intelligent. Because up until a few years ago, everything had to be very rules based, right? It has to be like, if this, then that. And you have to had a very rigid structure to make something work versus now where we have the ability to add AI into the picture and allow us to be a little bit more flexible and have a lot more use case and possibilities that we can offer.
So there is a lot of things that goes on. But as a firm owner, an accountant, like you said, you are talking about app fatigue, right? So we want the things to be done, but we do not want to see multiple applications or what is being done inside the applications, right? So integrations. How do you tackle with that? Like we said, a lot of softwares being needing to be toggle between can create frustrations, and how do you minimize that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. There are two ways fundamentally. One of them is making sure you really integrate them properly. Sometimes those apps might be might be able to integrate them natively. So in other words, kind of plug and play, very simple. The software company has already built the integration for you. But more often than not, you have to create the custom integration yourself. So what we see our clients doing more often than not, it's when they're evaluating apps, they are considering if those apps integrate already, because that's going to be much easier for them to implement. And if not, then they're going for the integration route to create a custom integration of sorts. Another thing that we're seeing a lot now is that rather than adding more and more apps into your stack, we see a lot of firms now using low code and some of these tools that we've mentioned, like Zapier, Make, Airtable, among others, to actually build their own solutions. So now, rather than you having to buy another app, you can have a solution that you've built that you can add features to over time. So I'd say that's kind of probably the two ways to tackle app fatigue. Either you will make sure that your apps integrate by default, you'll build the custom integrations, or you'll be actually building your own custom solutions. Although that's a little bit more advanced and for the much more kind of tech savvy accountants.
Right. Build your own ERP system per account for your specific kind of form. Right.
Exactly. Now, there's not always a need to build it's not like we're going to build like another QuickBooks, for example.
Right.
Oftentimes what we can do is how can we leverage what we already have? If we have QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is a great ledger, then we can pull that data into our own system and then create whatever feature it is that we want. Maybe we create an AI feature that's with a click and related to a client, you'll be able to create and download their P&L and analyze it, or create a report or some kind of document that you want to provide to a client as part of your service. So we don't necessarily, even when we're talking about custom solutions, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there's already a app that they're using that has the data we need, we just might look into, okay, how do we that data work?
Yeah, so not reinventing the wheel, but if there's already the solution, maybe tweaking a little bit to fit the use case there and going forward with that. I also want to talk about AI. There's a lot of talks about AI, and there's another fatigue of AI fatigue also. Listening to conversations about AI, whether or not it is going to take away our jobs or the efficiencies that it is going to bring. Because you work in the technology and you are also working with AI, how do you see AI implement in accounting firms, and do you see use case for that, and how we can be able to separate ourselves, or firm can separate ourselves with the use of AI?
I'll say this. I feel like many people are worried about AI and sometimes don't have the basics yet. So actually, I was talking to another person. He's like, he does marketing for accounting firms. And he said, I think he was asked in a conference, like, hey, what do you see is the future of marketing with AI and stuff? And he said, like, hey, before we worry about the future, let's make sure we're making the basics today. Like, is your firm asking for referrals? If not, do that. Does your firm have a website, your Google profile, your local SEO? So I like to just frame the answer first as I don't think many people should be as worried about AI if they don't have the basics in place yet. So do you have a practice management system, a way to manage your work and your tasks? Do you have a way to manage your client relationships and see all the interactions you've had with your clients? Because what we often find a lot is that people are coming to us and they're like, hey, Isaac, we have 3 different team members and they're keeping track of their work in their own Google Sheet. And when they go to vacation, we have no idea what it is that they had to do. Or they're like, okay, Isaac, whenever we talk to a client on a phone call, then we have to like go in and manually insert what it is that we talked about. And if we remember, because maybe we don't. And now all of that context is lost. And what I say is this, for AI to work, it needs good data. So I think you are better off first focusing on how can we improve the client experience of mention? How can we improve our workflows? How can we improve the way we manage our tasks and our client relationships? Bringing all that data, making sure you're capturing all of those things into your own system, because then you have the data for AI to be useful. But that aside, I do think that AI is a powerful, an extremely powerful technology that's going to disrupt the space as a whole. I think that there's a lot of venture capital coming into the market because investors and people are much smarter than me are seeing the opportunity to use these technologies to do a good chunk of the accounting and finance function. I think I read recently that like 60% of accounting and finance tasks are automatable. So just to give you like a perspective of how much we believe might be able to be automated. That said, I'll end with a positive note. I don't think accountants should be worried about their job. Even if AI takes over and we're able to do 80% of what we need, we're already struggling for talent. There's already not enough people. There are more and more job openings. There are less and less professionals coming to the market. So I think what technology is going to do is going to bridge that gap of talent that's missing, at least in the short term. And we think it's a great space to be in. Like, I mean, there's a reason we have niched down to this market. We believe that the demand for accounting services is not going away. Yeah, I believe that accountants and bookkeepers should not be worried about losing their job for now.
All right. So my questions actually was whether or not our jobs will be taken away. But have you work in automation? Is AI being used in automation, and how would the AI revolution has been to the automation revolution? If I miss it. So,
Yeah, let me just make sure I understand the question. So you're saying how AI has changed the automation
yes,
role specifically?
right. In the accounting industry, in practices there.
Yeah. I'll say that up until now, we've definitely seen a lot of interesting use cases to enable firms to be more efficient, specifically as it relates to, for example, client support. It's a big one. There's a lot that can be done like in tax search, tax planning. Also, one of the particular use cases I'm particularly bullish on is like bookkeeping as a whole. I do think that a great use case for AI, it's to learn from how humans categorize transactions, and not necessarily, to my point earlier, not necessarily taking the human out of the picture, but how could we, for example, you might be familiar with like bank rules in Xero or like automated rules in QuickBooks. Imagine something similar that's like AI powered based on the things you do. So over time, a human comes in and start categorizing transactions from a client. And 2 months later, those transactions start being automatically categorized. And the bookkeeper just needs to double check and change it if needed. So that's the kind of use cases that we believe are going to come up with the market. But to my point, I feel like there's so much more in the technology world to take care of, and that some accounting firms are missing, that I wouldn't be thinking about how to implement AI if you haven't yet, have a good core tech stack together.
Right. Don't jump from step 1 to 10, but take all the steps, and maybe when you have reached step 9, now you can think about step 10 that it's AI. Because most accounting firms do run on legacy processes. The firm owners, they remember their clients, their data in their head, and it's not even written down, right? So from head to first writing down, and from writing down to, maybe in a computer system or a software, and then from the computer system to maybe automate some stuff there, and the step goes on, but not directly jumping from step 1 to 10. AI has a use case, but it's too early for many firms, for majority of the firms. Some may be ready to implement it, but for the majority of the firms, they have not automated their simple processes as of yet. So that's where they should be looking at for now.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point also, I think that what AI is going to do, it's also going to expand the possibilities of what automation can do. Because it's not anymore about conditions and rules. Now, kind of like, I mean, if you think about it, if now the machine can see with, recognition and optical character recognition technology, if the machine can click and navigate through the app, if the machine can understand now with AI and can reason, what can't we automate? It kind of becomes a question in a way. It's not about what's possible. To me, it's like what's practical. Going back to the kind of flux idea we shared earlier. What's something you do on a regular basis that's repetitive, that's urgent, that's prone for errors? Let's worry about that. And if we find that AI can help, we will tackle it. But we like to think more like in a process first mindset of let's look at what needs to get done, and then let's think about the technologies, rather than trying to think about AI and trying to fit it into a box that maybe doesn't fit in.
I'll end with one question. You have worked with a lot of clients, and when you work for a client for the first time, and you have worked with different sized clients and the number of clients, what is the one process that you see is the most sought after to be automated? The first thing that an accounting firm tends to automate.
Document collection comes to mind. Maybe it's because top of mind because we've done a few of those projects. But I don't think any firm should be requesting via Gmail or via text message. There are just so many options out there in the market to enable you to safely and efficiently request documents from clients and extract that information. That's one of the biggest rocks and opportunities, I believe.
Right. A firm that is looking to improve their processes, maybe that is step 1, right?
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned earlier, I also think that client management and task management are big pieces of the puzzle as well. It's something that many firms have already adopted, but there's of course always a lot of laggers that are still keeping track of their tasks or of their client actions, right, of their email exchanges and so on, very manually and not being transparent for the firm as a whole. So we feel like that's also a piece of the puzzle that we believe is super important. If you don't have a task management system in place, get one. If you don't have a way to manage your client relationships, get a place to do that. Because we often find too, it's very rare that one app will do those two things very well. So we'll often have to have one for tasks, one for client relationships, and then integrating the two together. And those two things alone, I believe, are massive in terms of increasing transparency. Now you know what's getting done, you know what the client has been told, that the client has been reached out to, and you can start to automate more from there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It was very eye-opening, and I hope to many of the firm owners and the audience watching, because like I said earlier, there are a lot of accounting firms out there, but only a few have taken technology as an enabler, and not just relying on legacy relationships, but also improving technology and improving their processes that will help them be better form, be more productive, be more profitable. And if there is anything you'd like to add before we end, I'd encourage that.
I'd like to reiterate something we mentioned earlier, which is that don't think about automation as a detractor from the experience of the people that are involved. I think automation should and can be a improvement on the client experience. It can be an improvement on the team that doesn't have to do the wrong work anymore, and that will be happy with your firm, potentially stay for longer. So if I had to like hit something home, is like, don't think automation is going to remove the human pieces of it, because it won't. It can eliminate, as I mentioned earlier, the menial aspects of those touch points, so that then your actual human touch points are a lot more meaningful.
All right. Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Isaac, for your time today. Before we go, if someone wants to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Yeah, definitely. So check out our website at obser.co. We do offer from time to time, depending on the time of the year, a free process analysis. So you can just come to us with a process. Let us help you analyze this and find opportunities there with no obligations, just as a way to help. Of course, if you qualify, you can apply for it on our website. We're also active on LinkedIn. So if you look for Isaac Perdomo, Isaac Automation, you'll probably find me. And of course, if we can put that link in the show notes, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, sure. Everything will be in the description, and everyone can have a access there. So yes, Isaac, thank you very much for your time today. We'll see you again next time.
Awesome, man. Have a nice one. Take care.